Welcome. We definitely heard your questions and interest for another Tilta Float video. So this will be our comprehensive 1-year full review of the Tilta Float using the DJI RS2. When the Tilta Float first came out, we knew it was going to be a game changer. We pre-ordered, waited 6 to 7 months. While we were waiting, it seemed like every shoot we had would have been the perfect shoot for the Float.
Yeah, it was tough because once we placed the order, we had just started filming theater during the pandemic because they couldn't open their house. So the way we kind of went through that is we didn't just tape it like a live production. We would actually shoot scene by scene, almost like a movie, which meant lots of gimbal shots on the stage. And those were tough because there were times where it was like 4 or 5 hours of continuous recording, going scene by scene, getting all those shots. We knew the Float would fit perfectly into that like shooting style, but it just wasn't available yet.
Yeah, and I can remember how tough it was. We would have people taking it off your hands.
Yeah, fatigue really is a big one. As many of you gimbal operators out there know, like as you go on through the shoot day when just using a gimbal, you get more and more tired and you're getting less and less creative about what shots you could still get. You're just focusing on how to finish the project. So solving the problem of fatigue was a big thing for us since we were shooting very long days.
Let's talk about what it's like now.
Oh, what it's like shooting now, it's almost nothing on me. Like I can go for an hour or a few hours straight of just getting full B-roll footage, and it's as easy as I started. Like like maybe I'll get like a little bit of fatigue here in the shoulders or on my back after like a really long day. But now it's nothing. Like I can go from shot to shot to shot, and it feels like almost nothing on me. Like it feels like it's almost an extension at this point.
So what are some of the movements and techniques that you use with the Float?
Well, some basic movements is we have our high mode where the camera is like eye level or higher. We use javelin mode, as I mentioned before, where the camera lays like a Steadicam never could, where it lays flat, and that's great for getting waist level shots or getting or filming in locations where maybe there isn't as much space on the ground. Like there have been times where I filmed on balconies where the balconies are very narrow, and I just take the camera and put it up like this, and I can be above the railing and be getting all the shots I need.
So then you're able to be up high, and you're able to bring that camera down into javelin, and then you're able to bring that camera down, and now you're shooting low.
You're shooting in low mode, you can bring the camera almost down to your feet.
And then you are controlling the camera with your thumbstick. I
control the tilt of that with the thumbstick. I use the finger dial that's normally used for focus. I repurposed that for tilt because, I don't know, I can never do the tilt with a thumbstick. I always end up doing it too quickly or too slowly. I'd much rather the smooth sensation of just moving a dial and the head just goes up.
What are some of the core uses that we use the Float for?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's become the go-to B-roll tool. Like if you want to catch a B-roll of like somebody you're interviewing or a building or anything, the Float just is the perfect tool to catch every shot you want of it.
So what kind of shots are great for the Float?
Honestly, any shot where you have like a good amount of space and you want to get a nice moving shot that is very smooth of the camera. Like this is great for real estate, this is great for different kinds of B-roll. This could be good for interviews, like a run and gun interview. I find the Float is really good because it's very easy to hold, and even hold the pan lock in a position and not have to worry about the camera moving at all. And like I said, the weight's like nothing on you.
What conditions are not good for the Float?
The only things I would say the Float struggles in are tight environments. Like, while it can still get a shot in a tight environment, you lose your ability to switch from high to low mode at that point. And so at that point, you almost have to set your height before you go in and then walk into the room. It's not that it's not good for a tight environment, it's just it loses its flexibility there.
So what equipment has the Float replaced?
So it's definitely replaced a slider, it's definitely replaced a shoulder mount, any of those handheld B-roll options, like it's become our go-to for everything. I also think it can replace a crane too, although to the extent in which it can replace a crane could be a topic of a future video, so look out for that one.
So let's talk about the walk.
So one mentality I've seen in the comments a little bit among a few people was that they were looking at my footage on the initial review and they're like, oh, that wasn't perfect, or I could see the footstep jitters a little bit, or I could see something wasn't perfect. It's a waste of money. And
right.
I think if you're looking for something that's going to stabilize your camera, that's going to correct all issues immediately and fix everything, you're going to be very disappointed by, I think, most products in the market. The Float when you pick it up, it's not going to be perfect. All of my camera shake issues are a thing of the past. You're embracing the Steadicam setup to try and alleviate some of that tension on your arms and on your back. You're still gonna have to learn how to Steadicam. You're gonna have to learn what this arm does to hold the camera height level consistent and learn how to manipulate the float and still have the footage be smooth. And a lot of that's gonna be getting better at balancing, getting better at your walk, getting better at your hand placement, and also just getting a lot of muscle memory with the float. Tossing it from high to low mode and knowing exactly where it's gonna end up and catching it without having that impact be noticeable in the shot.
Yeah, there's one thing that I noticed was just how you started, you know, over the past maybe 6 to 7 months with it. You just walk differently when the float comes on. I noticed how you come down and how you round your feet and how you take out any kind of movement, how your body moves with it, and you kind of become an extension of it. You just have to take your time and really get the walk down and spend a lot of time with it. So another question is, how do we store the float?
Well, we store it on a bracket, very much like you see here. This is the ProAim bracket. If you're on the Tilta Ecosystems Facebook page, this is the one everybody's recommending. It's a very low cost one. It's designed for traditional Steadicams, so you will need the adapter plate to mount your Steadicam onto it. Now this adapter plate comes with the Tilta Float when you buy it. I don't believe they sell it separately right now.
I haven't seen it in the store.
But they really should, because you need multiple brackets when you're using a Steadicam. And if you're not using the Tilta one, then you need an adapter plate, so they definitely should sell that. But we also use the Tilta bracket as well. That one is definitely one I recommend. It works a little differently to this one. As you can see for this one's got a full pin preventing this from coming out. The Tilta bracket has more of a piece of metal, almost like a deadbolt that pops out that you have a switch right here. I think both systems work great, but I definitely think the Tilta one is definitely a much more high quality and sturdy one to take out on set, which we do.
Yeah, and that's really what's on our cart. So the next question people asked was transportation. So A, how do we get it to set? And then B, how do we use it when we're on set and we're in multiple locations? How do we move, you know, with the float?
Yeah, so one thing I definitely see is I've heard some people in the comments say that they bought the float, but then they never really took it out on set. And I think that some of that comes from people thinking that they have to take it apart after each shoot and then put it back together for each shoot. And
no way.
No, we balance it the night before, and then we leave it, we transport it fully together as it was balanced the night before, and then I just give it like a quick once over, make sure it's still balanced properly on the bracket, which usually I only have to do like a tiny adjustment, if anything. Usually it stays together really well.
So depending upon what you're transporting in, now, you know, we've got a van, or, you know, you could have trailers, but you have to have a place in which the float is going to be safe. We actually lay it down on a platform that we have on a cart that allows it to lay perfectly straight. We kind of loosen up the joints so that, you know,
there's no pressure on the head.
No pressure on the head or anything. And for the most part, we're going to recheck it before we shoot with it, whether it's balanced.
Like if you're taking this on a shoot, like I think you could probably totally lay this down across the back seat of your car, and then first thing you do when you get out of the car, you set up the stand, put the bracket on there, take that off, put it on the bracket, give it a little check, and then you're ready to go.
Yeah. So now when we get on site, we actually modified a cart. And we're using another piece of the C-stand that's not used in this. We can take the other arm and piece to that, and we mount that onto some of our large carts. And then we use the Tilta bracket in place of the ProAim bracket. And so we actually then mount this right to the end of the cart, and then we do everything there. So we can balance it there, store it there. The nice part about the cart is then we go and do the shoot, but now we're going to move to a different location. We immediately dock back into the cart and roll to the next location. We do it again. So that's kind of how we move. Let's talk about how long you can operate the float without a break. Talk a little bit about the comfort of it and maybe the clothing that you wear to give you more longevity.
Yes, so I feel like I could continuously operate the float for over an hour. Like I've done it for that long continuously for a shot, for one training video. I can go for as long as I need to. I mean, if it ever starts to bother me, it's sometimes in the shoulders a little bit with the straps. Maybe I'll feel something pressing into my back a little bit. but I would not recommend this with traditional jeans and a belt, just because the whole setup here pretty much is like a belt without the whole shoulder straps I've added to it. And when you put that on, you want to put it on tight. Like you suck in, Velcro it, and then take your breath. And then that way you can make sure it's as sturdy on your body as possible. But that means that whatever belts, whatever belt loops, whatever you have here is going to be pressing into your sides, and it's gonna hurt after a while.
So more athletic wear is probably the better.
Yeah, I recommend joggers, shorts, sweatpants. You'll thank me later.
So we get a lot of questions about balancing the float. Is it hard to balance the float?
Yes, and a short answer, yes. When you buy it just out of the box, it's almost unperfectly balanceable, because you can only balance it in Javelin. Like if you have it set here where you'd probably want it, if it goes up here, it's going to want to fall down. If it goes down, if you have it set down here, it's going to come back up. Right. And so, like without modifications, it is very hard to balance.
And that's why we ended up producing a pendulum video. And I can link that down below to show what we did at that time.
Yeah.
But
that's the simplest modification you can make.
But we've also modified it way past the initial pendulum videos. And so maybe we can just talk about balancing it and the modifications that we made.
So we did 3 major modifications, 2 to the float, 1 to the vest. So the first modification is we now have a left and right adjustment up here, because when you're adjusting like when it came out of the box, it was a forward and backwards adjustment for the head right here. But the thing about the head is that once you get that right, it never changes. Like even if you put a heavier setup up top, the center of gravity never moves. So we felt that a left and right adjustment was much more useful to have up here when you're trying to balance for stuff down here. So that brings us to our second adjustment, which is this entire battery plate here, which takes the traditional battery plate and makes it a pendulum, so that the batteries are rotating as it goes up and down. And so that right there really makes everything easier to balance at the bottom. And then the other adjustment we did, as you can see right here, is instead of it just being a belt, we've raised up this whole back support right here, added shoulder straps, and it'd be hard to see if I spin it all the way around maybe, because we have a belt right here too that goes on top of the Velcro, so that way you can be much more secure that this isn't going to come off, and that way it's not just a Velcro strap right there.
And really, I think the modifications to the belt, turning it into a vest, putting in rails and brackets and all of that, we can link videos to those modifications. They weren't ours.
If you want more information on the modifications we've made, we can actually link to the YouTube channel for Vaho Matt. I think it's called Camera Rigging and Mods. This guy is incredibly techy with camera equipment. He has pretty much designed all of the mods that we made to our float, and he has in-depth videos on how to do them yourselves with equipment lists in the description, so we will link to his video down below.
I know sometimes we get comments and people say, do you really need a float? And I think the question is, how long do you use it?
If you're somebody who uses your gimbal briefly and for a few shots here and there, and you don't feel like that fatigues you, like you don't feel like how heavy it is or how tiring it gets limits the creativity that you are putting into your work, then this probably isn't for you.
So our last question is, who is the float for?
If you're somebody who is working on documentaries or is doing long events or is doing longer gimbal shots that really fatigue you, I think this would be perfect for you. I think if you were catching B-roll on a documentary that could lead to spontaneous run and gun interviews, this is perfect because you could be doing one thing and go right into the other. This is great for training videos, anything a Steadicam would be good for. Like this has worked really well on short films. I've been able to balance it quickly, been able to work with a focus puller, but also on the corporate end, it is great for run and gun scenarios.
We love the Tilta Float. It is a foundational tool with our company. Any day we can take the float out on a video shoot is a fun and exciting day. Everybody loves to see the float in action.
If you haven't already, please check out our first impressions video and our Tilta Float balancing video. And please like and subscribe if you like these videos. And check out our affiliate links down below if you want to see the equipment. It really helps us out.
See you on the next one.